January 7, 2025. Los Angeles County is under a red flag warning, the most severe fire alert issued by the National Weather Service.
The Sunset Fire, based in the Hollywood Hills.
I live here. I've been here for 21 years, but yeah, it's time to get out.
A warning reserved for the most volatile conditions, when even a single spark can become catastrophic. The air is critically dry. Humidity has dropped below 10% drier than many deserts on Earth. Temperatures are soaring, nearly 15 degrees above seasonal norms. What should be a mild winter day now feels unnaturally hot, brittle, unstable. And the Santa Ana winds are beginning to rise. By early afternoon, sustained winds reach 40 miles per hour, strong enough to sway trees and carry debris through the air. By late afternoon, gusts exceed 60 miles per hour. At that speed, wind doesn't just move, it tears, it drives, it forces. In Southern California, this combination is not uncommon, but it is deeply dangerous, because when the air is this dry and the winds are this powerful, fire doesn't behave normally. It doesn't crawl across the land, it runs, it leaps, it spreads faster than people can react, and once it starts, it becomes nearly impossible to stop. Los Angeles was not always this vulnerable. Long before highways, suburbs, and hillside mansions, this region followed a natural rhythm. Fire was part of the landscape. Every 30 to 100 years, flames would sweep through valleys and hillsides, clearing out dense brush, recycling nutrients into the soil, and preventing dangerous fuel accumulation. These fires were not disasters, they were balance. But that balance began to shift. In the early 20th century, Los Angeles entered a period of rapid growth. New roads carved into hillsides, neighborhoods expanded outward and upward. After World War II, that growth accelerated dramatically. Returning veterans, economic expansion, and the promise of suburban life pushed development deep into canyons, ridgelines, and wildland areas. Places that once burned naturally now held homes, families, and entire communities. By the 1980s and 1990s, this expansion had transformed the landscape. Human structures were no longer adjacent to fire-prone areas. They were embedded within them. By 2025, more than 4 million Californians live in what experts call the wildland-urban interface zones, where human development meets natural vegetation. Los Angeles is at the heart of this transformation, a city built not just beside fire-prone land, but inside it. But location is only part of the risk. The greater danger lies in what surrounds these communities. Over the past 2 decades, California has endured some of the most severe drought conditions in its recorded history. Between 2012 and 2016, a historic drought gripped the state. Reservoirs shrank, soil hardened, forests weakened. More than 100 million trees died. And when trees die, they don't disappear. They remain standing, fallen, or fragmented, adding to the landscape as dry, highly flammable fuel. In the years that followed, intermittent dry periods prevented full ecological recovery. Vegetation regrew unevenly, often more densely and more dangerously. At the same time, invasive grasses, introduced over decades through agriculture and global trade, spread rapidly across Southern California. Unlike native plants, these grasses dry out quickly. They ignite easily and they burn fast. By 2025, vast areas of Southern California are covered in what scientists call continuous fine fuels, a near unbroken layer of dry, combustible material. In simple terms, there are no natural barriers, no gaps, no pauses, which means once a fire starts, there is nothing to slow it down. Wildfires are not random. They follow a predictable science driven by 3 key elements: fuel, weather, and topography. In Los Angeles, all 3 converge. Fuel is abundant, dense layers of dry vegetation stretching across hills and valleys. Topography plays a critical role. The region's steep hills and narrow canyons act like natural chimneys. As fire moves uphill, heat rises, preheating the vegetation above it. This allows flames to accelerate, spreading faster and burning hotter as they climb. And then there is the weather, the most powerful factor of all, the Santa Ana winds. These winds begin far inland, where high-pressure systems push air closer toward the coast. As this air descends through mountain passes and canyons, it compresses. And as it compresses, it heats up and dries out further. By the time it reaches Los Angeles, the air is hot, fast, and almost completely devoid of moisture. Under these conditions, fire doesn't just spread through direct contact. It travels through the air. Burning embers, some the size of small branches, can be carried miles ahead of the main fire front. They land on rooftops, in dry brush on streets, and ignite new fires instantly. This phenomenon is known as spotting, and it turns a single wildfire into dozens, into hundreds, all moving at once. January 7th, 2025, 3:42 p.m. A fire is reported in the hills north of Los Angeles. Within minutes, flames begin spreading through dry brush. By 4 p.m., fire crews arrive, but conditions are already working against them. The wind shifts, the fire grows. By 4:30 p.m., it has doubled in size. By 5 p.m., it breaches initial containment lines. And by sunset, it is out of control. January 7th, 8 p.m. Wind gusts now exceed 70 miles per hour. Visibility drops as smoke thickens. Fire crews are forced to reposition as flames shift direction unpredictably. By 10 p.m., evacuation orders expand across multiple communities. Emergency alerts sound across phones and television broadcasts.
We can orchestrate an effective attack on them.
Residents are told to leave immediately.
Is this your house?
Yeah, this is our house. Backyard's on fire. I'm out of here.
Some have minutes, others only seconds. This is where the fire changes. It is no longer a single front. Instead, it becomes thousands of fires at once. Embers, small pieces of burning material, are carried by the wind. They travel over roads, over fire breaks, even over entire neighborhoods. Some land on rooftops, others in dry gutters or yards, each one capable of starting a new fire. This process is called spotting, and under extreme conditions, it can overwhelm even the most prepared firefighting response. January 8th, 2025. As the sun rises, the scale becomes clear. Thousands of acres have burned overnight. Entire blocks have been reduced to ash. Firefighters continue working, but containment remains below 10%. Aircraft are deployed, dropping water and fire retardant, but strong winds limit their effectiveness. At its peak, the fire spreads faster than emergency crews can respond. More than 50,000 residents are displaced. Emergency shelters fill quickly. Families arrive with little more than what they carried out the door. For many, the loss is total. Homes, vehicles, personal belongings gone in a matter of hours. And beyond the physical destruction, there is the psychological toll, displacement, uncertainty, and trauma. January 9th through January 12th, fire crews from across California and neighboring states join the effort. Thousands of personnel are deployed, containment lines are established, backburn operations are conducted to remove fuel ahead of the fire. Gradually, conditions begin to shift. Winds weaken, humidity rises, and by January 12th, the fire is partially contained. By mid-January, the fire is finally brought under control. After days of relentless spread, shifting winds, and round-the-clock firefighting efforts, the flames are no longer advancing. But what remains is devastation. Entire neighborhoods have been reduced to ash. Streets once lined with homes are now marked only by chimneys and foundations. Thousands of structures are destroyed, homes, schools, businesses gone. Tens of thousands of residents are displaced, many with little more than what they were able to carry as they fled. For some, there is nothing to return to. The financial cost climbs into the billions, but the human cost is harder to measure. Lives disrupted, communities fractured. Years, sometimes decades of stability erased in a matter of hours. In the days that follow, investigators begin the process of determining how it started. Was it human activity, infrastructure failure, or something as small and unpredictable as a single spark carried by the wind. At the same time, a broader question begins to take shape. Not just how this fire started, but how a city like Los Angeles can continue to exist safely in a landscape where fire is inevitable. In the weeks and months that follow, attention turns to prevention. Experts, policymakers, and fire scientists point to several critical strategies. Stronger building codes designed to make homes more resistant to heat, embers, and flame. The use of fire-resistant materials, hardened roofs, sealed vents, defensible space around structures. Better vegetation management, reducing fuel loads near communities, clearing dry brush, maintaining buffer zones, reintroducing controlled burns where possible, and improved early warning systems giving residents more time to evacuate. Faster alerts, more accurate fire modeling. Better coordination between agencies. Each of these measures can reduce risk. Each can save lives. But none of them can eliminate the threat entirely. Because beyond policy, beyond infrastructure, a larger trend continues to intensify. Temperatures are rising. Heat waves are becoming more frequent and more extreme. Landscapes are growing drier, and fire seasons are no longer confined to a single part of the year. They are longer, more unpredictable, and increasingly severe. In this new reality, the conditions that fueled this fire are not rare. They are becoming the norm. Today, Los Angeles is rebuilding. Construction crews return to the hillsides. New homes begin to take shape, designed with fire resistance in mind. Communities slowly reassemble. Families come back. Businesses reopen. Life, in many ways, resumes. But the landscape has changed. Hillsides, once covered in dense vegetation, now show burn scars, dark, uneven, and unmistakable. In some areas, green has begun to return, new growth pushing through ash-covered soil. A reminder that ecosystems can recover, but also a reminder that the cycle will repeat, because fire is still part of this environment, and the forces that drove this event have not disappeared. Scientists warn that fires like this are becoming more frequent, more intense, and more difficult to contain, not because of a single cause, but because of a combination of many. The Los Angeles fire of January 2025 was not just a wildfire. It was a convergence of climate, of geography, and of human expansion. A moment where natural conditions and human decisions aligned with devastating consequences. It did not create the risk. That risk had been building for decades, but it revealed it, clearly, suddenly, and at scale. And it showed just how quickly, under the right conditions, a familiar landscape can become something unrecognizable, how a single ignition can transform into a city-wide emergency, and how, in a world where extremes are becoming more common, the question is no longer if it will happen again, but when.